Warning. Actonville TV disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the host, authors, and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any religious affiliation.
வணக்கம், நமஸ்தே, நமஸ்காரம், சாய்ராம், ஜெய் ஸ்ரீராம், சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா, கோவிந்தா, கோவிந்தா, கோவிந்தா. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. It is a beautiful Friday evening right here in Lanesia South on Actonville TV. This is the Journey Show, the show about exploring Hinduism as a whole. I'm your host Kimera, Heeralal, and if you'd like to join the conversation, please do so by commenting at the bottom of the screen right there, or if you wish to hashtag your views anonymously, use our WhatsApp line at the bottom right of your screen right there. Alright, so as you know, we are doing Geeta week over 18 days. I know what you're going to say, it's a week. But anyways, we educating about the Bhagavad Gita as it is about 18 chapters. Now, today is episode 94 on Actonville TV, and we are discussing Gita week part 15, chapter 15. But before we get to that, you know in our culture in Hinduism, you have to open up anything with Ganesha. Let's invite Lakshmi stars on the screen with praising Lord Ganesha.
Siddhi Vinayaka Charanam Charanam உலகில் முதல் பொருளே சரணம் சரணம் மூஷிக வாகனா ஓம் கணநாதா சரணம் சரணம் நினைப்பது எல்லாம் நடப்பதில்லை, சிரிப்பு மாழுவதும் தெரியவில்லை. நினைப்பது எல்லாம் நடப்பதில்லை, சிரிப்பு மாழுவதும் தெரியவில்லை. ஓம் என்ற மந்திரத்தை ஒரு முறை சொன்னாலே நினைப்பது எல்லாம் முடித்துவிடும். ஓம் என்ற மந்திரத்தை ஒரு முறை சொன்னாலே நினைப்பது எல்லாம் கொடுத்துவிடும். நினைப்பது எல்லாம் நடப்பதில்லை, சிரிப்பு மாழுவதும் தெரியவில்லை.
Jai Ganesha. What a beautiful delivery from Lakshmi Stars, all the way from Durban, can I say? Celebrating and praising and worshipping Lord Ganesha right here on Actonville TV. When we come back, we're going to talk about chapter 15 from the Bhagavad Gita straight after this. Ayappa, Govinda, Govinda. Welcome back, everyone. You're currently still streaming with us live in Lanesha South on Actonville TV. If you didn't know by now, this is the Journey Show, the show about exploring Hinduism as a whole. You're looking at, well, Kimera, Heeralal, your host. And if you want to join the conversation, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe first. Then comment at the bottom of the screen, or you can use our WhatsApp line and just comment anonymously. We've got Vishnu Devan Mudli coming in on YouTube. Good evening, namaskaram, namaste, vanakam to you too, Uncle Vishnu Devan. We got Devan Naidu coming in, namaskaram to you too, sir. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, as you all have been waiting for the educational part of the Journey Show, coming up next on the Gita Week, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, and don't forget, it's episode 94 if you're hunting for it later. Dr. P.K. Maestri from the MSK Temple.
Good evening to the viewers of Actonville TV. We are presently discussing the Gita, wherein we started our elaborations during Gita Week. Before I continue today's chapter, I also have some exciting news. Actonville TV is getting a lovely exposure in our region. First of all, I said to you that we've attended the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Summit held by the Premier of Gauteng in Birchwood on Tuesday, wherein we mentioned Actonville TV and how they are promoting Hinduism in the region, which leads to good ethics and decrease in corruption. Yesterday, one of our members of the Actonville TV went to Absa Bank, and there they met a senior official at the bank, Mrs. Hema Dulab, and she stopped our member and she said how excited she is to be following the Gita recitations and commentaries on Actonville TV. So we thought this was a great honor and a great privilege for Actonville TV to be bestowing their anti-corruptionness and ethics through the teachings of the Gita. Now we started off, or the Gita started off, there's your copy of the Gita. This is the one we are referring to. The copy of this Gita is from page 1 to 722. So, the first one started observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and we explained to you what is the actual meaning of that. It is actually not the war on earth, it's the war within yourselves. Then we quickly discussed the contents of the Gita, summarized went to Karma Yoga, transcendental knowledge, action in Krishna consciousness, meditation in yoga, knowledge of the absolute, attaining the supreme, the most confidential knowledge in the Geeta, the opulence of the absolute. And then on chapter 11, the universal form, chapter 12, devotional services, chapter 13, nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. Chapter 14 were the three modes of the material nature. That was the good, passion, and ignorance. Then today we are on chapter 15, which is the yoga of the Supreme Person. It starts off on page 591 and goes to page 614, and it has 20 texts within that chapter. All right, so there will be certain references in this chapter, and I'll quickly like to narrate one or two of them. The first one, the Brahman is the formless, but is the birthplace of all forms in the visible reality. Does Lord Shiva pray to Krishna? Yes, he meditates on Krishna in the Gokula form. Which is Gokula form? Gokula is one of the paradises. Krishna says, Shiva is the best in everything. It is Shiva among the Rudras being the best. Now, does Krishna worship Shiva? Krishna was incarnated in the human form to restore Dharma, that's a religious order. He could not have worshipped Vishnu. Why not? I.e., means worshipping himself, so he worships Shiva. He is Vishnu. How can he pray to Vishnu? He prays to himself. So he prays for Lord Shiva. Krishna prays for Shiva. Shiva and Parvati granted the wish of Krishna to visit Kailash, and when he completed it, he returned to Dwarika. He built a Sivalinga and prayed to it. Krishna met Shiva on two occasions. When Mansurya fought Krishna at Kailash, that's when he met Shiva. What is the name of Krishna and Shiva jointly? The name is Yogesh. Yogesh is the source of knowledge. It refers to both Krishna and Shiva. Who is more powerful, Krishna or Shiva? The 18 Puranas each dedicate to a particular name of God, establishing that name is supreme. In the Shiva Purana, Shiva is the greatest. In the Vishnu Purana, Vishnu is the greatest. And in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, obviously, you know the answer, Krishna is the greatest. Herein in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna reveals his true self, not the physical form, but the being that embodies all existence. Now in this chapter, the yoga of the Supreme Being is also called Purushottam Yoga. What is so exciting about today's topic? My name is Purushottam. So I was given this name 67 years ago, and the Purushottam here is spelled as Purshotttam, Purushottam Yoga. And yoga here, it means an Hindu spiritual and ascetic. You know what's ascetic? A person who has given up his worldly life. A Hindu spiritual or an ascetic discipline, a part of which is included in breath control, simple meditation, and the adoption of specific bodily postures. The practice of yoga leads to the union of the individual consciousness with that of the universal consciousness, and it's the harmony between the mind and the body. So we're not going to repeat the word yoga and the meaning all the time. So now you've got it. It's a Hindu spiritual and ascetic discipline. Now, chapter 15 on page 591, it is divided into 20 texts. These texts are the actual words translated from Sanskrit and Gujarati into English by Prabhupada. It has 20 texts. It is not possible for us to go through each and every text. So I want to bring it to your attention that each of the chapters, if we were going to have an actual lecture, Each of the chapters will take us 3 days. Here we are trying to capture the chapter of, in particular, chapter 15 of text 1 to text 20 in less than 15 minutes. So we'll try to do our best today and keep on explaining to certain, probably if you want to call it difficult words. So I'm going to say what Krishna said in some of the texts, and then there's a purport, P-U-R-P-O-R-T, by Prabhupada. What is that meaning? It means, purport means appearing to be true or intended. Appearing to be true or intended. All right. Text 1 says, Krishna says, that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upwards and its branches downwards. And those leaves are the Vedic hymns. You got that? The roots are facing upwards, the branches are facing downwards, and the leaves are Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. The purpose of the Vedas is to study and understand Krishna, the Godhead. The one who is Krishna conscious, who is engaged in devotional service, already knows the Vedas. The entanglement here is the banyan tree. For one who is engaged in fruitive activities, there is no end to the banyan tree. He wanders from one branch to another, and to another. The tree of this material world has no end, and for the one who is attached to the tree, there is no possibility of liberation. Now the Vedic hymns, the Vedic hymns means a large collection of hymns in praise of God which are chanted in various rituals. So what I'm reading out now, and what I want you to try and understand, is what text 1 means. So the Vedic hymns meant for elevating oneself are called the leaves of the tree. The tree roots goes upwards because they begin from where Brahma is located, and the topmost planet of this universe. If one can understand this indestructible tree of illusion, then one can get out of it. In the process of discussing chapter 14, it is explained that there are various processes which to get out of the material enlightenment, and up to the 13th chapter we have seen that devotional service to Krishna is the best way. Now, the basis of devotional service is attachment from material activities and attachment to the transcendental service of Lord Krishna. The roots of this material existence grows upwards. This means that it begins from the total material substance, from the topmost planet of the universe. From there, the whole universe is expanded with so many branches representing the various planetary systems. Example, Surya, Chandra, Buddhan, Guru, Sukiran, Saniswaran, Ragu and Ketu. Those are the planets. The fruits represents the results of the living entities' activities, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Now there is no real experience in this world of a tree situated with its branches down and its roots upwards, but there is such a thing, that the tree can be found besides a reservoir of water. We can see that the tree is on the bank of the river. It reflects upon the water with the branches down and the roots up. In other words, the tree of the material world is only a reflection of the real tree of the spiritual world. This is what Prabhupada is saying. He's taken the Sanskrit, the Gujarati, a few lines that Krishna said to Arjuna, and is demonstrating it in proper English. In some of the previous chapters, we discussed in detail the meaning of desire. Herein, in chapter 15, desire is the cause of things being situated in this reflected material light. One wants to get out of this material existence, must know this tree thoroughly through analytical study. Then he can cut off his relationship with it. This tree, being the reflection of the real tree, is an exact replica. Everything is there in the spiritual world. The imperishables take Brahma to be the roots of this material tree, and from the roots, according to Sankhya philosophy means what? It views reality as composed of independent examples like Purusha and Prakti. We have said Prakti is the eternal energy of God, and Purusha is the Supreme Lord Himself. And then the three gunas, which we also said in the previous chapter, it means good, passion, ignorance. Then the five gross elements: space, air, fire, water, and earth. And then the 10 senses. The 10 senses will mean touch, life, movement, balance, smell, taste, vision, temperature, hearing, language, and ego. Those are the 10 senses, but the five main ones is touch, sight, smell, taste, and the rest are called mind. In this way, they divide up the whole material world into 24 elements that we made up of. If Brahma is the center of all manifestation, then this material world is a manifestation of the center by 180 degrees. And the other 180 degrees constitute the spiritual world. The material world is preserved reflection, so the spiritual world must have the same. That is in reality. Since this manifestation is material, it is temporary. A reflection is temporary, for it is someone seen and sometimes not seen. But the region from whence the reflection is reflected is eternal. The material reflection of the real tree has to be cut off. When it is said that a person knows the Vedas, what is the Vedas? The earliest body of Indian scriptures. It is assumed that he knows how to cut off the attachment from this material world. If one knows this process, he actually knows the Vedas. There are 4 Vedas: Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, and Atharva Veda. One who is attached by the ritualistic formula of the Vedas is attracted by the beautiful green leaves of the tree. He does not actually know the purpose of the Vedas. The purpose of the Vedas, as we mentioned, the 4 different Vedas, as disclosed by the personality of God in Himself, is to cut down this reflected tree and attain the real tree of the spiritual world. Let us go to text 2 now. I discussed text 1 as per Prabhupada, what he translated the Gujarati and translated into, but we cannot afford to do it on every text or each and every text. So I'm going to mention some of the texts, and only the last text 20 I will explain in full. So we are now on text 2 on page 593 of those that are following from the Bhagavad Gita, the one herein that is exposed and shown to you. The branches of the tree extends downwards and upwards, nourished by the 3 modes: goodness, passion, ignorance or lust of the material nature. The twigs are the object of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive action of human society. That was text 2. Text 3 and 4 is combined. The real form of the tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends and where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must put down the strongly rooted tree with the weapon of a detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from within. Having gone, one never returns, and they surrender to the Supreme Personality of God, from when everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. As I said, the purport, which is an explanation by Prabhupada on this text, is on page 595, following the Bhagavad Gita. Let's go to text 5. 3 and 5 was combined. Now this is text 5 of chapter 15. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with this, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbeloved, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person to attain the eternal kingdom. Then there's a purport to it. You can read that on page 595. Let's go to text 6, appearing on page 597. That extreme abode of mind is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by the fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world, says Krishna. All the verses is what Krishna is saying. All the purports is what Prabhupada has translated. So these were the words of Lord Krishna on text 6. In text 7, Lord Krishna says, the living entirety in this material world carries this different portions of life from one body as the air carries aromas, different flavors. Thus he takes one kind of body and again puts it to another. And there's the purport to it, and that purport was on page 599. Text 10. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he engages under the spell of the modes of nature, that's goodness, passion, and ugliness or greediness. But one who sees a trained eyes in the knowledge can see all this. Don't forget, we said in some senses that Krishna prayed for Shiva and Shiva meditated on Krishna. So now let's go to text 13, which is on page 605. Krishna says, I enter into each planet and by my energy they stay in orbit. They stay in orbit because of me. I become the moon and therefore I supply the juices of life to all the vegetables. I think that's fully understood. Text 15, I am seated in everyone's heart, he says, and from me comes resemblance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta. What is Vedanta? Vedanta is the conclusion of the Vedas and applies to the Upanishads, which were the elaboration of the Vedas. So the Vedas, you know about the 4 Vedas, Vedanta means the conclusion of Vedas. It also applies to the Upanishads, you'll come across that quite often, which were elaborations of the Vedas. And I am the knower of all the Vedas, of all the 4 Vedas, says Krishna. In text 16, Krishna says, there are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. What is fallible? Fallible means capable of making mistakes. So what's he saying? There are 2 classes of beings, there are 2 classes of people. The fallible, who can make mistakes, and the infallible, obviously, can't make mistakes. In the material world, every living entity is fallible. And in the spiritual world, every living entity is infallible. Fallible again, capable of making mistakes. Let's go to text 17, getting more interesting now, on page 610. Krishna says, besides these 2, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul. The imperishable Lord himself is called the Supreme Soul, who has entered the 3 worlds. We said it many times. Earth is only one of the worlds. Therefore, when a person dies, the priest is conducting so much prayers in order for him to travel these 3 worlds and become soluble with the Godhead. So beside the 2 worlds, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord himself, who has entered the 3 worlds and is maintaining them. Wherever you go in the 3 worlds, you'll always see the Lord Krishna. Text 18, because I'm transcendental, beyond both the fallible and infallible, and because I'm the greatest, I'm celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that supreme person. I am the greatest, he says. I am the celebrated, not only in both the worlds and in the Vedas. I told you there'll be a purport read by Prabhavata. We're not going into that yet. It's on page 633. Let us go to Krishna's text 20 on page 613. Krishna says, part of Vedic scriptures. O sinless one, who's he referring to? Arjuna. And it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, as endeavors will know perfection. I'd like to describe this last text a little more fully. It says, or Prabhavata says, obviously saying it through me tonight. Here the Lord clearly explains that this is the substance of all revealed scriptures, and one should understand as it is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This one will become intelligent and perfect in transcendental knowledge and becomes free from all contamination of the modes of material nature. What is the modes? The three modes we keep on talking about, the three gunas, the good, the passion, and the greedy ones. Devotional service is a process of spiritual understanding. Wherever devotional service exists, the material contamination cannot coexist. Very important. I'm going to say it again. The devotional service is a process of spiritual understanding. Wherever devotional service exists, the material contamination cannot coexist. Devotional service to the Lord and the Lord Himself are the one and the same because they are spiritual. That means devotional service takes place within the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord is said to be the sun, and ignorance is called darkness. When the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. You all know that. Therefore, wherever devotional service is present, under the proper guidance of a spiritual master, there is no question of ignorance. That's why you'll always hear in the temples the priest talking about Tamasa Ma Jyote Gamaya, from darkness to light. Here again, you sing it in English. No one has to become pure to understand the consciousness of Krishna. You have to destroy the weakness of the heart. Desire must be decreased. In this chapter 15, the first 5 verses describe the process of freeing oneself from those weaknesses of the heart, and the rest of the chapter from verse 6 to the end discusses Purushottama Yoga, which is the yoga of the Supreme Person. Prem Namaste. I thank you tonight.
Dr. P.K. Maestri from the MSK, known as the Meenakshi Sundareswara Koval Temple in Malaysia South on Starling Street. What a beautiful delivery and explanation in English, guys, of chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita. Coming up next is Hare Hare Narayana, covered by Mahesh Naidu.
బ్రతికిన నాలుని భజన తప్పునగానే మరణ కాలమునందు మరుతునేమో ఆ వేళ యమతుడ లాగ్రహంబుల వచ్చి ప్రాణముల్ పగలించి పట్టనప్పుడు గప్పవా పద్యముల్ గప్పవా బ్రహ్మచేత గంపముద్భవమందు కష్టపడుచు నా జీవతో నిల్లు నారాయునా ఎనచు పిలుతును శ్రమ చేత పిలువులేను ಭೂಷಣ ವಿಕಾಸ ಶ್ರೀಧರ್ಮಪುರ ನಿವಾಸ ದುಷ್ಟ ಸಮಾರ ನರಸಿಂಹ ದುರಿತ ದೂರ ఏడుకొండలవాడ వెంకటరమణ గోవింద 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 శ్రీ శ్రీనివాస మహావిష్ణుదేవ నరసింహదేవ ఏడుకొండలవాడ గోవింద 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 హరి హరే నారాయణ మాది నారాయణ కరుణించే మమ్మెలో కమలలో జనుడా ఓ హరి హరే నారాయణ ఆది నారాయణ కరుణించే మమ్మెలో కమలలో జనుడా నారాయణ
meditation delivered by Mahesh Naidu with Hare Hare Narayana. As I would like to share with you guys, we are in the middle of Pratasi, so I gotta go. Goinda, Govinda. Coming up next, we got Shashi Gosai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, coming up next.
Namaste, I'm Shashi Gosai. Now we're on to the chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 15 not only summarizes the whole of essence of Gita, but also of the Vedas. It covers 4 topics which are core of any spiritual scriptures. And they are: what is the world? Who am I? What is God? What is the relationship between me, the world, and God? Sri Krishna ji begins the 15th chapter by describing a very unusual type of tree, an upside down tree, like a tree's reflection in water. And these trees are never static, they're always changing. And the further one gets away from the roots, the less the significance. So let's have a look at the metaphors which are described in this illustration. The first one is the root of this tree is Ishvara, the Brahman, the eternal essence with form. Its branches are Prakriti. They have sprung from Ishvara, the tender, subtle sapling hardened over a period of time into a robust tree. They are the hardening of the senses, the Prakriti, the hardening of the combination of the 3 gunas. The Vedas, represented by the leaves of the tree, are the rules of the universe. They give us clear instructions on how to act honorably and spiritually in life. Krishna ji says the one who can get to the roots, which is the source, will get to Ishvara, and he needs to know nothing else. When its buds grow into branches, they touch the ground, form roots, and become firmly embedded in ground. Similar to a banyan tree, which has several additional trunks, and over a period of time, a small tree with one trunk becomes a mini forest in itself. The upside down tree is a metaphor for the material world that we live in. For example, we'll buy a house which has a garage, then we buy 2 cars, then we buy the furniture, the curtains, so on. So that one initial purchase led to so many desires that we're forever trying to fulfill. This is similar to the tree that the Purush has got caught up in and is struggling to get free of all the desires which have taken root into him. So Shri Krishna ji started talking about this tree to cultivate this passion in us. He said with even a tinge of attachment is going to derail us from our spiritual development. Each sense object generates desires within us. These desires lead to actions to get those desires, and so on. We're forever running to fulfill our desires. So these desires bind us to the branches of the tree. And the more desires we have, the further we get away from the roots, which is Ishvara. So Shri Krishna ji had given us an illustration of this upside down tree to lift us out of our narrow view of life. We're all caught up in this action, desire, results, action, desire. No matter who we are, rich, poor, educated or uneducated, we never see our existence as it really is. And Shri Krishna ji says that all of you are lost in the cycle of action and reaction, the tree of samsara. So take refuge in me. I am the original Purusha, the root from which this tree of samsara has sprung up. I have created this universe. Don't get lost in the branches of the tree, which are fueled by the 3 gunas of Prakriti. Come straight to the source, which is me. Hold my hand. I will save you from drowning in this samsara. When we have realized that we're entangled in these emotions and desires and generally want a solution, we first have to get rid of our pride, ego, and arrogance. We can cultivate this passion by seeking and taking refuge in Ishvara. But we can't have both ways. We cannot love Ishvara and love the material world at the same time. If we cannot control our mind and senses, we cannot cultivate devotion to Ishvara. And the final liberation is achieved when we have devotion and dispassion towards the world. Once achieved, we will have to look back into the material world. Sri Krishna ji says, for seekers who are striving for liberation, there's a 2-step process. Firstly, the reduction of I and mine, which is pride and delusion. Secondly, find out where his attachments are stuck, for example, profession or family. Eventually, they'll find out that they're attached to the body and the fear of death. Attachments can be conquered by controlling mind and senses. we should be aware of our likes and dislikes and look at it in a very dispassionate way. And then we get into self-realization and then attain the supreme abode, which is self-realization and liberation. Krishna says there is no sun, moon, or fire, or any other source of light in his abode. And this symbolically means sun, which is our ego and intellect, moon, our mind and emotions, and fire, our physiological functions. Sri Krishna ji says there is a part of Ishvara called Atma in every embodied soul, or the Jiva. So to put into context, Purusha is the waters of the ocean, Prakriti is a force or the power that makes waters move, Jiva are the little bubbles arising from the ocean, Atma is the water in the Jiva bubbles, meaning there's Atma in every single cell of our body. Upon death, like the wind takes away the fragrance of the flowers, Jiva takes with it the mind and the senses from the old body into new tiny physical body, which is an embryo in a womb, depending on the desire still wants to exhaust in his next life. Sri Krishna ji then describes his individual souls or jivas that start the cycle of samsara because it's forever trying to exhaust its selfish desires. Krishna ji emphasizes that the wise man can understand that the jiva is separate from the physical body and I is our ego when it actually is the eternal essence. Only those who have followed the path of Karam Yoga or Bhakti Yoga will really understand the spiritual teachings. One has to have a pure mind and systematic study to realize that Jiva is encapsulated in this, the Upadhi, the physical body, very similar to a droplet of water in the whole water ecosystem. Sri Krishna now begins to describe the connection of himself with the whole world around us. He says, he is the brilliance of the sun that lights up the entire world. He is the radiance of the moon. The fire have also originated from him. Sri Krishna says that it's Ishvara that has entered the earth and sustains every being, every atom in it through its force. Sri Krishna says that there's a force that's holding our body together. There's a force that's holding the whole universe together. And as we know, energy needs a medium to travel in. And he says Ishvara is in the form of nectar or the sap, which is the essence of all vegetation, which then goes on to feed all of us. A healthy plant life is essential for the ecosystem. It feeds all the birds, animals, and even humans. It's the energy behind us. So Ishvara says he's the sap, he's the energy behind all of us. So in this manner, whether it's energy, nourishment, or healing, Ishvara is pulsating through us, is pulsating through the whole world. Sri Krishna says we are nourished by vegetation, which gives us energy or the fire within us, similar to what we now call metabolism. And this is supported two forces. The first one is the prana, which brings food towards the digestive organs, and apana vayus, which excretes in non-essential food. So Krishna ji has now described metabolism, how we ingest food, and how we excrete food. Sri Krishna ji then describes 4 types of food that gives us different types of energy. For example, food that can be chewed, for example, rice. Food that's sucked, e.g. lemons. Food that can be drunk, for example, fruit juices. And food that's licked, for example, pickles. So we can see that the production, distribution, and consumption of food within our bodies is nothing but Ishvara. So Ishvara is a producer, distributor, and consumer. Yet another example of our oneness, of our connectivity through the whole animal and the plant kingdom. All living matter, from a single cell amoeba to human beings, have an awareness or consciousness, which is the power of Ishvara. And this is a connection that gives us throughout the universe. Isn't it amazing that the forces of gravity, electromagnetism, atomic forces, life forces, metabolism has all been documented in the Hindu scriptures long before the Western got to know about it. We humans crave knowledge, whether it's history, geography, or arts. And Krishna says that he is producer of the knowledge, and the some knowledge is documented in our Vedas. The assimilation of knowledge goes through a 3-step process. The first one is that we do not know anything, we have no knowledge. Next is knowledge begins, and finally knowledge is stored in our memory. All these steps for the acquisition of knowledge happens due to Ishvara, which is resident in our intellect. But the ultimate knowledge is the realization of Ishvara and us, the self. And this is called the end of knowledge, Anta of the Vedas. So it's called Vedanta. So whenever we learn something new or we recall something on memory, we should understand that it's Ishvara working within us. Sri Krishna says the 2 types of Purusha, or the aspects of Ishvara in this world. The first one is the perishable one, the visible world, with all living and inert beings. It's the physical bodies which born and die. And secondly, the imperishable, the invisible entity, the eternal essence, the Atma, which is the supreme Brahman, who is the Lord of the 3 worlds. which is heaven, earth, and hell, or even our waking, dreaming, and sleeping states. Sri Krishna ji then reveals his true identity as Purushottama, the foremost being, the Brahman, the eternal essence, and is superior to the perishable Prakriti and the imperishable embodied souls of Jiva. So this brings us back to cause and effect. According to Vedanta, there are two types of causes. For example, in a wooden sculpture, there's the material cause, which is wood, and the intelligent cause, the creator, the man who made the sculpture. So the effect is the wooden sculpture. And Purushottama is the intelligence behind whole creation, intelligence behind the creator, and the raw material behind the creation. The Upanishad compares Purushottama to a spider who weaves a web from within himself and then draws it back into him. So he is the creator and the destroyer. Sri Krishna says, do we know Purushottama when? We see our I as no different from anyone or anything else. We do not pay attention to name and form. We see the self as the basis of all name and form. So the worship of Ishvara through a deity with name and form is a small but very essential step of realizing Purushottama, which is a whole vast universe beyond it. The teaching in this chapter is called seek knowledge. It is called the secret because it's not arrived to just normal senses. It has to be revealed through a series of analogies to really grasp the whole concept. So we have to fully understand the relationship between us and the universe around us. And the spiritual teachings will come to an end when we realize that the I within us is the same as in every single atom, every single living being on this earth. And that is the grand message of the Bhagavad Gita. Well, I hope you enjoy listening to a little bit of simple Hinduism. I will be bringing some more. This is Shashi Gosai. Thank you.
Kural, we do apologize for the technical difficulties that we're having in studio today, as our signal it's quite weak this evening. But as you know, we're doing the 108 principles of the value system from the Kural, and the lesson today is sitting at number 13.
Today's lesson from the 108 Principles of the Value System from the Thirukural is number 13. Do not engage in defamation, criticism, or giving false testimony. Compliment people on their good qualities.
As you know, Praveen Mudli, one of my favorite artists that actually got me to enjoy bhajan music, is coming to Joburg, Actonville, Benoni to be specific. Let's take a look.
Hi, my name is Dr. Valentino. His mother's a favorite DJ. Come join me on the 30th of September at the Service Samaj in Soma Street, Actonville for an amazing show featuring Praveen Mudli and True. Admission totally free. I look forward to seeing you there.
For those of you in need of a guru to perform the following services, we have Guru Indresan, who can perform the Jandagam, also known as the astrological readings, the Panchagam, the Navagrah Shanti, your house prayers, your business prayers, your car prayers, your temple and hall weddings, your ceremonies like your 16 days and your 1 year, not forgetting your Janda prayers, your auspicious Hawans, as well as your Kumbha Abhishekams. You can contact Guru Indresan on 081 325 0115. I'll give you the number again. It's 081 325 0115. Personally, Guru Indresan told me to make sure that I contact him on a weekday after 6 p.m. Well, that's all the time we have for this evening, folks. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please join us again on Monday, episode 95, Geeta Week, part 16, chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita. Have a blessed weekend from myself, Kimera, Heeralal. Vanakkam, Namaste, Namaskaram, Sai Ram, Jai Shri Ram, Swami Saranam Ayyappa. Govinda, Govinda, Govinda. Good night, everyone.